Puerto Rican kid, bald head, loves snakes, loves Blizzy, Sergio Chacon.
Yeah. What up, Pop?
Peace. Welcome to the DBS podcast. It's your boy Sergio Chacon, aka Blizzy Chacon. That shit whack.
I mean, it's always gonna be Dirtbag Shit podcast. The DBS podcast. Welcome to the DBS podcast. It's your boy Sergio Chacon, and I'm very excited by today's guest. He has a daily vlog on YouTube with over 3 million, damn near 3 million followers, subscribers. He owns BHB Reptiles, which is a reptile breeding facility out in Michigan. He also owns his own reptile zoo, the Reptarium, which I had a chance to visit. It was absolutely phenomenal. I am thoroughly entertained, motivated, and inspired by this individual. Please enjoy and welcome Mr. Brian Barczyck.
Creatively being able to tell a story every day, right? Like, what is that story that you want to tell and how do you want to portray it? And like you said, I mean, from the early days of the vlog, and of course, I YouTube for 8 years before I started vlogging. So for 8 years, I had a channel called Snake Bites TV that was once a week. And then ultimately it changed to something called Animal Bites TV, where I was doing multiple shows a week. But ultimately I daily vlogged about, this fall will be actually, I think I started the vlog in June. So it's coming up on 4 years in June, but I didn't start daily vlogging until November of that year. So this coming November will be 4 years straight. But again, it's like, I love creativity. I love cameras. I love editing. I love telling a story, and I love being around animals. So all those things mixed together. And for me, it's not hard. It's not hard. I mean, maybe the work is hard, because we work really hard, but the amount of enthusiasm isn't hard at all, because I may be more excited today than I was 3 years ago about the daily vlog, to be honest.
Wow. And that's due to I guess you could sit back and look at the growth of it all. I mean, that you have to be super proud of that. Having your own zoo, and then like just the response you're getting, it's a very positive thing. Just the response. I mean, you have a cult following. I'm one of those guys,
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Now, so for you, it's obviously a passionate thing, and that's something that you feel right off the jump. I mean, when you talk about your animals, when you share, the progression to this point, that's all, I can tell you're just so passionate about it. Do you find though, I mean, you're an entrepreneur. This is the type of shit that you gotta keep on swinging that hammer. Does it have a toll, like on personal relationships? Like I try to dip into my own life and think, like, I do stand up and I'm away a lot of weekends. I'm a personal trainer. I got my animals. I have a lot on my plate, but I would imagine it's like every day. Do you find that it strains? Like, does Lori get annoyed with you? Like, why don't you take a couple of days off, Brian?
Well, I think that's what works so well, though, is that, Lori, I've been with Lori for 32 years, and we've been married for 27 years, 28 this October. And she gets me, I mean, she just gets me. She gets everything about it. She understands my kind of drive. And like you said, I'm all these things. Like, I mean, I'm a storyteller, I'm a YouTuber, but like you said, I'm a businessman too, so I always think, like, everything is finite, and so your success on social, for instance, especially for a 50-year-old white guy, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not exactly the demographic.
You're white? I thought you were Asian this whole time.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to tell, these Polish genes.
Your ponytail's extra tight today.
Yeah, but I think that, like I said, I always think, like, I don't know how long people will watch. I don't know how long this will be successful. So I've got to try to make the best of it. And maybe that's part of what drives me as well. And Lori understands it. So Lori is very forgiving about not being around and being away from things. I travel a tremendous amount when obviously we don't have the issues that we have now. And she's just always been super supportive, and so it's nice to have someone that doesn't need to have me there every day, all day. And she rarely, so she'll keep me in check. You know what I mean? Like when I go like, oh, I want to get a sloth, she'll be like, no, we're not getting a sloth. You know, but
which is hilarious because you mentioned on the blog time and time again, hey, Laura, what about a sloth? And it's this.
I am so.
You're chipping away. You're looking for.
I know. Well, you know, it was funny. The podcast that we do last week, I almost got her because I was talking about adding a venomous section to the reptarium, and she actually. Well, she was like, no way. But she was almost like, you might have a better chance of getting a sloth than the venomous section. I was like, so there's a chance, you know.
You just got a pawn ahead. You know, you just move the pawn real quick.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we're like you said, we're chipping away. But thankfully, she's great about it. But like I said, going back to, I think that, you know, that's what drives me too, is the fact that, you know, I don't know if, you know, we're coming up on 4 years into the vlog that's been, you know, way more successful than I could have ever expected it to be on all levels, you know, financially, the amount of people that watch, the influence that you have in doing things like the reptarium or merchandising or whatever the case may be. But, you know, I don't take that for granted. You know, I think that a lot of my friends are 20-something-year-old, massively successful YouTubers. And it's like, I think they almost think like it's going to be there forever. You know what I mean? Because they're young, they're full, and they kind of, and I love that about them, that they're so like, hey, listen, their attitude is almost like, hey, listen, if this dries up in 5 years, I'll just move on to the next thing in my life because I'm making millions of dollars and I'm doing all this other stuff. For me, I feel like this is my big hurrah. You know, I mean, there may not be a next thing. I mean, I think there always will because I'm super. I mean, if the one thing that I have more than any other attribute is my work ethic. You know, I always tell people.
And you do a pretty good job at. You're very innovative. For example, we're going through this period in time where we're on pause. But this pause, you're pushing forward. Like immediately you were doing the digital tours. Like, I mean, you know, it wasn't even like a full, it wasn't a full shutdown, but you like jumped on it quick, which I thought it was very smart, you know.
Well, it's funny. It was very smart. Well, thank you. And what was funny, I told the story the other day about this. It was like, so you were there for the opening weekend, you know, like you were there right before our opening weekend and stuff.
And real quick, I would book a tour opening weekend where you're at your most stressed and probably not that interested in giving the tours.
No, I was so pumped, dude.
I didn't get that from you at all, man. I mean, I wanted to be a part of that, man. I mean,
I was awesome. So pumped that weekend. That weekend was so draining, but I was so pumped. But you know, so basically we have like this crescendo, right, where I worked for a few months, unbelievable amount of hours building this reptile zoo, getting it ready, going. We open up, and literally Monday morning I shut down. You know, I'm done because it's like, you know, the Corona thing, and we actually shut down before we were mandated to shut down. We just thought that it was the right thing to do. And then within a couple of days, it was mandated that I wouldn't have been able to be open anyways. But I made the decision beforehand just because I'm not even joking with you, dude, man. Like, I was really stressed after that weekend, not during the weekend, because during the weekend I was happy. But after the weekend, I was stressed because the Corona thing was really starting to pick up. And I thought, oh my God, I just had 1,000 people from all over the country in my place where I was hugging them and shaking hands. And I was like, oh my God, just get me through 14 days past the period, you know? But my point is that we shut down Monday, and literally I remember Monday going like, oh my God, you know, like I don't have any income coming in. We're not open on the weekends. I don't have tours. I don't have birthday parties. I don't have school events. This is wild. And then literally Tuesday morning, I woke up and I was like, Lori, what do you think about virtual tours? So Monday was the only day that I had that was like, okay, we're shut down. Tuesday, I was like, what do you think about virtual tours? My first tour was Wednesday. So literally 2 days of like shutdown. And I have not had a day since that Tuesday that I haven't had booked 100% virtual tours. And then on top of it, call me an idiot because again, I'm just thinking of like, hey, this is a new world. Let's try to, the big thing for me is I'm not going to make the money I was making, but can I like not lose money? Can I at least break even? Can I keep my employees' paychecks coming where I don't have to cut hours or lay anyone off? And so that's the way my mindset worked. And so then I added, we've been doing, I'm sure you've heard of Cameo, I'm sure, right?
What's that exactly?
Cameo, it's an app where, you go on and get shout outs from like famous people.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I've heard of it, yeah.
So we've been doing Cameo for a long time, but we decided to do our like own cameos in-house at the Reptarium or BHB Reptiles. and so people could go. And we wanted to make them really inexpensive. They're $12, and you get a personalized message, from me or the crew or whatever the case is. And then to make it more like if it's from the crew, I split it with them. Like they get half and I get half. For facilitating the administrator side. And dude, there have been days where I've spent 4 hours doing shout outs.
Wow.
I mean, like every day I have a stack of shout outs like this high. So my point is that I just keep going, man.
Yeah. And the thing is, with that sort of thing, at first, something like that, I'm not saying you personally felt this way, but it's new territory, right? It's out the norm.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff could be cringeworthy to someone who has a routine. It's just like, oh, I don't want to do this shit. I remember that's the way I felt when I was faced with the reality that I'm gonna have to do virtual sessions. Now I'm like Billy Blanks, like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I gotta wear like a leotard. I don't know how to do this, right? Yeah. I gotta really play it up. And although I'm like high energy, and when I do a class or whatever with boxing, I'm doing that performance, and I got the stand up, so I try to keep it innovative and interesting and fun for the viewers. But I was cringing at the thought. But once I did it, it felt good. It felt like, oh wow, I could do this, and it's just like. That's me adapting to the situation. That's you adapting to the situation. And you'll be surprised how many of us are fully capable of doing that. And you learn more about yourself. It opens different doors. It's just a catalyst to all sorts of interesting things,
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I've said, you can go one of two ways. You can bury your head and feel bad for yourself, or you can pick yourself up and do something. And there's a whole bunch of other things that I'm trying to, the problem is that, my whole staff is very stretched right now because we're still caring for animals. Now we've got all this extra virtual stuff that we've added to the plate. I would say I'd almost be busier now than I've ever been, actually, which is weird.
Right. I can see that. I can definitely see that. Do you find that that there's been a spike in sales with the BHB headquarters? Are you selling a lot more animals? Yeah. Because, man, I am tempted. I was looking at those Peruvian boas, Brian. I was looking at those Peruvian boas, and you have a couple of Guyanas, and I already have 2, and I need to cut it out.
I know. It's tough. And it's funny. Like, I'm not – I think I might have told you this before. I'm, like, not very involved in the BHB side of sales, right? Because the fact is that I don't take pleasure in selling animals, right? I love working with animals. I love hatching and producing animals. So Lori and my staff really take care of that. And so I don't see the day-to-day grind of what sales are. But like in the last couple of days, Lori came to me and had said how we spiked a lot. She had said, like, sales are, she's like, sales have been ridiculous. We're getting low on certain things. And I was like, really? I had no idea because I'm just so far separated from that.
Right.
But yeah, no, the business.
What was Lori a big fan of reptiles before she met you?
No, the weird thing is dude, so I met her on her 18th birthday. Okay. I was 19, she was 18. It was actually at a school party because we went to the same school. I had, graduated the year before her, and she had just graduated because her birthday's July 15th.
And you were born and raised out in Michigan.
Yeah, we're both raised here, in the suburbs of Detroit. Lori was raised in Detroit City itself, and I was raised in the suburb. And but she moved with her dad for her last couple years of high school in a suburb called Centerline. And we went to the same school. We didn't really know each other because she was a year younger than me, and she hadn't been there for very long. So anyways, point is, she graduated, and I just happened to go to a party of a friend of mine, and we met. And then after that, we started seeing each other a little bit. And she was terrified of snakes. I mean, she wouldn't even come in. So I lived at my mom's house at the time, and so I had a basement, with that had a snake room in it, and she wouldn't even come in the snake room. She was like terrified of us.
So the picture you're painting, I picture you like in the basement, hunched over, pulling out a berm or something, and I see a silhouette of like Lori on the stairway, like I'm not going on there.
That's more or less what was happening. And then what ended up happening was, as we started dating more, she realized, at that point I had like 200 snakes, so it was quite a bit of work. So she realized, like, hey, if we wanted to go out with our friends or go hang out, that, she could help me and we could go out earlier. If not, I was stuck all night working and we couldn't go do anything. And so she started, cleaning tubs and just being involved in things. And then ultimately one thing led to another. And she ended up, by the time we had our first kid and got married and all that stuff. We were 20 years old, and she did this full time. Like that was her job. So she's never done anything else. Now she's a wizard at it. She's the best snake person.
Yeah,
I
she's
know,
great.
but,
She's such a great addition. I love the chemistry between you two. Especially just like it's that she's like a little hard on you, and you can tell it's a natural thing. It's not like some YouTube producer came out of nowhere when it became successful. Like, hey, you know what we need? We need Lori to give you, to let you know you're not getting that slope. Like it's a natural flow. I absolutely love it, man.
Well, she's Italian, and she's got that Italian blood in her, and
Right.
she doesn't mess around. I always say that the one thing I would never do is ever get into a fight with Lori, because she kicked my ass in a bad way, man. I think even with your physical training and boxing, she'd still put you on the mat real quick.
I'm gonna have to use my bobbing and weaving with Lori.
Yeah, she's got a good punch. I tell you, it was funny. Her brother once, who was a big he's big built dude, fighter, just would beat up. It seemed like every weekend he was in a bar fight somewhere, right? And I'll never forget one day she got upset with him, and she freaking punched him so hard. And he went down. I mean, he went down.
Wow.
And it was over, man. It was done. So Lori's Lori can be a badass.
You're just in the cut eating popcorn, like.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, I'm staying out of this one. I'm not touching this, man. That's
no eye contact.
Yeah, no. I want to stay away from that. But no, she, like you said, it's all natural. The one thing that's great about Lori is that she is who she is. She's never going to put on any. She could give a crap what people think about her, and I need that in my life.
Well, I was going to say that's something I've seen, like that support that Lori gives you. Even like I spoke to her briefly when I met her at the Reptarium, and I could just tell she like totally has your back.
Oh, yeah.
And then what I gathered from watching you guys every day is that she moves forward, and it's just like, I know who I am, and you most certainly do too. But I could tell you're probably dealing with a little more noise that could probably, interfere with always being positive. You're always positive, but it could be very trying, if I may. Yeah. And it's so good to have someone like that in your life. I mean, it's so important. So it's like you guys really complement each other that way, which is nice.
It's the perfect yin to the yang. It's funny. Of course, you hung out with Noah, my son. And by the way, he loved you, and he said you were the best.
Shout out to Noah, man. He is cool as shit. I met him briefly, and the thing is, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but now Noah, he's Lori, and that's your son.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know you have a daughter. That's not that's from a previous marriage, maybe.
No, actually, don't. And it's funny because a lot of people think that because I often will say my daughter. But it's actually our daughter too.
Okay.
So we are. It's just that she's 8 years earlier than Noah.
Got it.
So we were really super young. Lori was 19 when she got pregnant. I was 20, and she had her when she was 20, and I was just about 21. And so for some reason, I always say that. I don't know why. It seems like Jade is.
Yeah, that's what.
But we have two kids, Jade and Noah, and they're both ours.
It's probably due to the fact that I just see Noah a lot more on the vlog too. So,
it was. And she's never. Yeah, she lives 2 hours away. Is what it is. She moved away, and she's 28 years old. So she has a husband, and they're starting a family, and they live about 2 hours away. Yeah. So we don't. She's not around as much as we'd like, but she's great. She's great too.
Yeah. It was really cool to meet Noah. And so when I visited you guys, Lori had mentioned that once I told her that I was a comic, she said, "Oh my God, Noah loves stand-up." I was like, "Well, I'm doing this show at the Comedy Castle, and he is more than welcome to come through." Now the thing is, I wasn't really booked for the show. It was like what they call a guest spot. So my boy Gary Vita was headlining, and he was like, "Yeah, come through and do a spot." The only reason why I ended up doing the spot, because I was a little nervous. That was when all the noise was being created regarding COVID-19. Now, I wasn't too concerned with like getting sick or whatever, but it's just like things were starting to shut down a little bit. And I was like, is it worth the half-hour drive? But once I heard Noah was going to the show, I said, I'm definitely going. I got to meet this kid. And I had such a short set. Usually when I'm on the road, I'm doing 20 to 30 minutes when I'm with my boys and we're touring the country. And because this is like what they call a guest spot, it was like a 5-minute spot. That's not easy to do. And as you can see, I'm long-winded. I need more time than that.
Yeah. Well, he did say that out of everyone, you were the best. That's what he said. So I'm glad.
Good job, Noah. Good job.
Yeah, good job. Yeah, yeah. But he really, like I had mentioned before, he's like written a set now and he's practicing it. He really wants to do a comedy as well, and so hopefully he will. But yeah, I mean, he loved it when you were out here as well. And
Oh,
he
no.
thought it was cool, and hopefully he'll do it. I keep encouraging him. I think he could be fun, and but you never know what happens, and it's great for, like you said, even comedy obviously and podcasts have really kind of married with obviously everything that the LA comics are doing, New York comics are doing. I think it's a great thing where how you guys are all doing podcasts, and it's kind of showing not just your persona on stage, but also giving you the opportunity to kind of learn what you're about, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of. Were you a big wrestling fan as a kid, or no? That wasn't your thing.
I really wasn't, to be honest with you. I wish I was a little bit more because I feel like I missed out.
Yeah, I mean, this is what it reminds me of. So let's say like the big ones, like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, they're fighting.
Yep, sure.
There was nothing more interesting than watching them like in the locker room talking or something. Like you felt like you had that behind the scenes, like, ooh, what's going on down here? Like we're not supposed to be here. That's what I feel like the podcast has. It gives you. It's a little more intimate. People feel like they're really a part of it. I'll tell you, a stand-up fan is one thing. Someone who's interested in stand-up comedy, but I feel like certain messages or stories or just your personality resonates a little better and stronger via podcast because they're like, oh, I really feel like I get to know this person, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, even with our, we started podcasting obviously as well,
which is great. I've been listening to it. Good job, man.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I love it, dude. I mean, I've told people this. Again, you talk about being innovative. I think that you have to always evolve, right? And I went from like the evolution of my kind of public life was obviously Snake Bites, which was my original YouTube channel.
Now, before Snake Bites, and I'm sorry to cut you off, there was something else that you did. You were traveling a lot, like abroad. Was that a show on Discovery? I'm sorry if I got that wrong.
Yeah. I've done quite a bit of TV stuff. You're right. I've done some Discovery stuff. I've done some Discovery Science. Even did a little Nickelodeon gig. So yeah, it started kind of in the TV world. Then it went to Snake Bites, on YouTube, and then ultimately the vlog. And now I feel like the next evolution is podcasting.
Yeah.
And I really feel that way. And much like we're doing now with a Zoom in or Skype in, that's so right now we do checking in, which is the family, which I love, by the way. I love the fact that the family can be on, we can have a great time together. But I think like the next step, I think I'm going to start like every Saturday, maybe even starting this Saturday, quite frankly, is doing a one that's just me and a guest. And ultimately, I'd love that guest to be in studio at some point. But right now, with the Corona thing, I think it's a great time to be able to just Zoom someone in or Skype someone in. And ironically enough, not that I'm breaking anything, it may or may not happen. We'll see. I'm working on it. But if it happens this Saturday, my guest could be Doc Antle from Tiger King.
Oh wow! Which one? Which guy was that?
So Doc is the one that has Myrtle Beach Safari, that he has all the wives and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. he got like a harem of women. He's majestically walking. On top of a horse, or was it an elephant?
Yeah, elephant. It was an elephant. Yeah, it's an elephant. Yeah. So
I mean, holy shit! I mean, I could not believe what I was watching. Talk about entertaining as hell.
It was a wild thing, and I've known most of the people that were on that show, for a long time. And so I've been talking with Doc about coming on the podcast. And he hasn't given me 100% commitment yet, but I think we're pretty close to being at that point.
What's his first name again?
It's I don't remember what his actual. Everyone always knows him as Doc, like doctor.
Doc, you need to get on the show. Stop playing, man. Doc, stop playing. We need you on the show.
Weirdly enough, it's like his name is some bizarre name. It's like I always thought his name was Doc because I've always known him as Doc Antle. But apparently he has some other weird, like kind of Hinduish name that I think he just made up or something. But,
that's hilarious.
Nevertheless, he's a good guy though. I like him. He's a good dude.
Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed watching each and one of those episodes. And right off the jump on the first episode, and it reminded me of you immediately, was Tom Crutchfield.
Crutchfield, yeah.
Right? If I'm not mistaken, that's probably the guy you got the iguanas from. Am I wrong?
Yep, that's right. That's where
Yeah,
I got
thought
my
so.
albino and crimson albino iguanas about a month and a half ago. And yeah, I've known Tom since I was like 19 years old, something like that. So,
Wow.
so he's been a good friend of mine for many, many years. And yeah, I mean, Tom's a good dude. And yeah, he started. As a matter of fact, I remember being down at Tom's place and him telling me about filming this Netflix thing. I had no idea what he was even talking about at that time, because no one really talked about it. And then when Tiger King really first launched, it was still kind of a cult thing for just like the animal people. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
like it went on a buzz. Like a bunch of my friends are like, "Oh, you got to watch Tiger King. It's got Mario in it. It's got Doc in it, and some of the people we know, and Tom's in it." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll have to give that a watch." And then it sort of blew up into this like phenomenon that it's crazy. As a matter of fact, I guess they just put out another kind of episode-y type of thing. I guess just in the last couple of days, that was like kind of like a look back where they had all the cast on. Doc wasn't on, and of course Carol Baskin wasn't on, but all the rest of the cast was basically on. Just saying like, how did you think it did? Did we do the right job? I haven't watched it yet. My crew was just talking about it, so I'll probably watch it the next day or two.
Interesting. But, I found it strange that they said originally in the first episode it was going to be about Tom Crutchfield, right? And reptiles.
Right.
And then it just took a turn. So they probably have all this other footage in the archives circulating around Tom. Is that fair to say? It's possible.
I think there's a good possibility you may see a similar type of a show with Tom and people, because Tom is a very interesting character as well. He would fit into the Tiger King.
Yeah, I
mantra.
mean, when I did the research on him, that there was some controversy surrounding his name regarding like the trade of animals and stuff. I'm sure they'll tap into some of that stuff just for Netflix sensationalism, even though that doesn't really identify him. I mean, I look at him as like just a guy who's knowledgeable and works well with venomous reptiles and has this really cool collection. But I know that that's part of like the history, and I'm sure like Netflix will pick it up, especially with that in the story.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. Tom really reinvented. It's talking about evolving. Tom evolved after his jail stint. So he basically, the pre-jail Tom was a very, he did a lot of smuggling. He did a lot of dirty deals. I mean, he was involved in all the stuff you would expect the Tiger King stuff to be involved in. And then of course, then after Tom kind of evolved into what we see now is this more kind of but he is still very eccentric, very knowledgeable, very, very eccentric. And I mean, listen, he started his Crutchfield farm there that he's at now, and literally they had, I mean, it's perfect for Netflix because he had a partner. Him and his partner had a falling out. There was a standoff where like there was guns involved, and like the whole place got like surrounded by police because there was a hostage situation. Ultimately, Tom ended up killing his partner.
Oh my God. And this is all going down in Florida.
This is all going down in Florida.
Yeah, so you get if you're wondering why Tom is still moving around doing documentaries, because it's Florida, baby.
It's Florida. You could do almost anything. But yeah, as the story goes, they had his partner had him at gunpoint. He fought the partner,
he was defending
got the gun
himself.
away. Got the gun away and killed his partner. And that's right on the property he's at right now. In the same house he lives in is where that all went down. So it's the perfect Netflix kind of spin-off. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like that in the coming, because even like, you have obviously Mario was in the Tiger King, but Mario was a big part of the reptile community for a long time. I mean, obviously going back, they touched on a little bit how he was the biggest cocaine dealer and drug dealer in the country. And people still, and even Mario admits it. And there's a book called The Lizard King that was written about it, about how literally, Al Pacino's, Scarface was based on Mario.
Wow. Yeah, he definitely had like that swag attached to him. And the thing is, like, I know Mario, so I grew up around Mario's, and he seemed the most sane out of that whole crew.
I loved him. I have the utmost respect for Mario. I mean, he's always treated me extremely great.
You know what I liked about him, like, and him and Doc specifically, like they owned their shit. It was no like bullshit. They like hey, this is what I did, served my time, and I'm moving on. I love that. It was none of this like political, like, it was this
Yeah.
person's fault. I was like, no, I did this.
Yeah, I loved it when he's like, "Hey, what am I going to say? That I wasn't there when they put the circular saw to the guy's neck? Of course I was there." You just go like, "Holy crap!" Man."
Right,
It's like,
right, right.
but like you said, that I think people appreciate when you just, yeah, like you said, own it, as opposed to trying to make excuses like, it was a friend of mine that did it. I didn't even know it was. Then you go like, I don't know, and maybe that's why Carol Baskins come out in the bad end of it, right? It's because
Yeah,
just
right.
being picky.
That's interesting that you say that because there's something to be said about just being honest, even when it's ugly, right? And leaving
Yeah,
yourself a bit vulnerable because we're all
yeah.
humans. No one's exempt. We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna do some dirtbag shit. If
Oh
if
yeah.
you have any question, everybody in this planet has a little bit of dirtbag peppered on them. I mean, it makes
Oh
us
yeah.
who we are. I mean, through
Yeah.
hardships, that's how we develop beautiful art and beautiful things, right? So when
Yeah.
they own it, when they leave themselves vulnerable, it's like, oh, it's a more relatable kind of feel to it, you know?
Yeah,
And
I
that's one
agree,
thing
and I
I
think
even got to
yeah.
say about going back to your vlog. I love the fact that you do that too. Like you'll say, if you fucked up or something, you'll say, Jesus, I left the cage for the reticulated pipe down
Yeah.
open. I mean, this
Yeah.
is obviously a very different thing, but it's like
Yeah, no.
those things make it just so real and relatable. So it's
Well,
like
I try
refreshing.
to, I mean, yeah, I try to, although, obviously, as you know, the internet, has a lot of people's opinions on it. And sometimes when I make myself vulnerable a lot because I'm so transparent with everything. I mean, when I make mistakes,
Right.
I film it. When I do something good, I film it. It goes both ways. And so, unfortunately, because I give myself that vulnerability, you can also go the other way where people are like, oh yeah, look at that guy, he's letting snakes out, and this is going on, and that's dying over there, and stuff like that. But that's just to me. I don't, I think it's worth it. And what I mean by that is, I would rather be transparent and get beat up than try to hide things, because hiding things just doesn't. You're always going to be looking over your shoulder, and there's always going to be someone that says it's like, hey, this happened, but Brian didn't own up to it. So I just figured, hell, I'm just going to put it out there, and then if I get beat up, and I, I mean, obviously, there's no one in the reptile world that gets more abuse than I do online, which is shocking to me because I think that my level of care and love of these animals is second to none. But
Right.
but there's crazy. I mean, it's just the way it goes. But that again, that goes with. I mean, I think that any successful person, not just online or just
That's
animal person.
exactly what it is. It's not hiding to your success. But I love the fact that you kind of embrace that because
Yeah,
I think it needs to be because what happens is, let's say there's controversy, for example, like going with a naturalistic enclosure that's large or a tub,
yeah,
something that you touched on. It's
yeah,
interesting because now it's like the conversation has started. Now,
yeah,
and that ignites change. That ignites, an exchange of information, and
yeah.
hopefully, anyone who is really interested in doing the right thing, the sharing of information hopefully results in that. You know.
Yeah, I think that especially as animal people, if we aren't always looking at the way we do things judgmentally, like not towards you, but towards ourselves,
Right.
looking at ourselves, saying, should we change? What should we change? How
Right.
can we do things better? If we're not doing that, then we probably shouldn't keep animals. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like I think
Right.
you always have to be very critical of your own care and in the way you address things, and you also have to be willing to change. I mean, I look back on the 10-year ago snake bites guy compared to today. There's not even a resemblance. I mean, I'm a completely different person. But yet, if someone wanted to judge me for what I did 10 years ago and not give me the credit of changing and evolving to where I am today, then that's their fault, not my fault. You know what I mean? And that's
Absolutely.
what I feel about it. So, and like I said, I don't really, I think the one thing, it's funny, I'm sure like Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Gary V. Do you know him at all? Like he's a social media guy.
That name sounds very familiar. I just can't get the face.
Yeah, so he's like a really popular kind of like motivational guy on the internet, like millions and
Oh yeah,
millions.
yeah, Gary V. Yeah, the one yeah, yeah. He actually had this quote at the start of the quarantine. He was like, "Allow this pause to push you," or something
Yeah,
resembling that. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I love Gary V.
yeah. There you go. Good. So Gary Vee is great, and but he said some things that really resonated with me as far as a social media guy or whatever, is that you have to throw out good and bad. And what that means, and this is a very difficult thing as people that are aspiring to be, comics or social media successful guys, we always want to read the good comments or have the good people that are like, oh, your act killed you. They're great. But we want to throw the hecklers out. We want to throw, the truth is you got to throw both of them out. You got to say like, you know what, the good comments and the bad comments, you can be appreciative of the good comments, but you can't let them dictate how you feel about yourself.
Absolutely. That's a
And that's
damn
something.
jewel. That is a gem.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what Gary Vee said that, and that was what I had to come to in my life, because I always wanted people to like me. It's like, why would people think such horrible things about me, this and that? And then I got to a point where I was like, you know what? The only way that I can discard the people that say lies about me is to also not put as much uh, emphasis on the people that say great things about me. Again, you could be appreciative of the support. You can say thank you and you're amazing. But like you, I mean, me and you have met in person. You know me. You know who I am. Now I value your opinion because you have met me in person. You know me not just from behind the camera, but you know my personal, how I talk, how I act, how I can't spend the time that we spent together and be a lie, because you'd be able to pick that out in a second. So like when someone's actually met me, been to my facility, and they have an opinion of me, whether it's good or bad, I value that opinion, whether it's good or bad. But some anonymous person that just watches my stuff online or follows me online, I can't put any value in either side of it. I can't put, they don't know who I am. Someone that says, "Hey Brian, you're the greatest guy on the planet." I think, how do you know that? You don't know me. You
Right,
just watch
right.
my video. You have no idea who I am, really. And so again, you could be like really appreciative, like, thank you for your support. Your support means the world to me. But in your head, you have to realize that you can't put value as a person in their
Absolutely.
opinion of you, and that was something that once I came to that realization, it was really freeing as a social media guy, because then you can start to create content that you're proud of, that you
Right.
create for you, and you want people to enjoy it, but you want to be proud of it, and because it's really easy, especially as a daily blogger and as a YouTuber, that your primary income comes from social media. It's very easy to start creating content for views.
Right.
And
Right.
that's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. And I call it the Logan Paul effect, right?
Right.
And,
Right.
so Logan, who everyone knows by the way, he's a friend of mine, a very good guy. I think the world of Logan. I've known him since before he was even, I think I was in his third vlog ever on
Oh,
YouTube.
really?
Yeah, third vlog ever. I was in Logan's vlog, and I've known him ever since. But nevertheless, my point is I think at some point Logan got so tied up into filming and vlogging and churning content that when he came across that dead body in the Japanese forest, he just looked at that as content, and he didn't think about what he was doing. And I truly think it was a mistake, and it was a mistake that almost everyone in his position would have made the same mistake.
Right.
Because I say that all the time. Like, thankfully, I have a bunch of, I would like to think, number one, I'm a much older person than Logan, and also I do have people around me, and I'd like to think that honestly, I think that if I would be in the suicide forest and found a body, I may have filmed it too. But
Right.
I would like to think that somewhere down the line, I would have never published it. Or I would have published it in a different way, going like, hey, this is about suicide prevention, rather than like, look at, I'm making YouTube history, there's a dead body. And so I think that was the only difference, because as a daily vlogger, you do start looking at life as content. Like
Right.
everything around you, when something happens, you think, can I film it? Can I film it? This is going to make a good story. But then the maturity comes to say, yeah, because I mean, we film a lot of things that we decide to throw out, not because we think it incriminates us, just because we think it's just not positive content, and we think like, let's put out stuff that's going to inspire people, not bring it down. I'll give you an example. I was talking with Jay, my camera guy, and this was just a couple days ago, and I was like, I think I want to make a video talking about some of the things that are said about me the most. And what I mean by that is that my snakes all have mites, right? Now, I haven't had a mite in my collection in like 6 years. Not one mite in my collection in 6 years. My snakes are all sick. I haven't had sick snakes in forever. I don't have sick snakes. And that I don't, and there's a few things. So there's maybe like 5 things that people say about me. Like I keep monitor lizards in rack system, which is just asinine. So I told Jay, I said, hey, I want to make a video maybe talking about these 5 things and how they're just ridiculously wrong. And we talked about it and we decided that's not the positive content we want out there. Even though we might be self-serving by saying, look at guys, I know people say this about us and it's wrong and I can prove it. Look at, I'm proving it's wrong. The truth is that what message does that send to anybody other than the fact that I'm paying attention to negativity?
That's
rather
exactly
than,
right.
And so we decided to scrap it. We said, no, let's not film that. Let's throw that away. That content.
Yeah, you're giving those fucking trolls a little bit of power right there.
Yeah, exactly.
And momentum.
Yeah. So the best thing to do is just ignore it, move on. And I really do. I mean, I say this, but I really mean it, dude. Like when I see a negative comment about me, it doesn't affect me one bit. Like, I mean, I literally look at it and I actually have a little bit of sympathy for them.
Right.
I'm like, I am a YouTuber. I consume all of my, 90% of the media I consume is on YouTube. From news to sporting to entertainment to comedy, whatever it is, I watch YouTube, right? Whether it's podcasts or whether it's whatever it is. And I have never once left a negative comment on one video, ever. That doesn't mean that I haven't liked videos. I've watched plenty of videos I don't like. And you know what I do? I just click off. I just go to the next video. And so when someone leaves something like that, I literally do almost think like, what place in life must you be to put something so negative on somebody's page? So it doesn't affect me. It's like I care. I actually have empathy for them. Like, I hope you find some light in your life because you're real. I had this guy the other day, dude. It was crazy. He wasn't even attacking me. It was actually on our last podcast. And this guy literally left like 10 messages. And every single message, every single comment was like, it was about how like Corona was like a conspiracy and that the governments are lying to us and this and that. And finally, after like, and it just went on and on and on. I mean, we're talking like every comment was like a paragraph, and he left like 10 or 12. And finally, the last one, I'm like, bro, you need to find positivity in your life, man. You've got to stop. You're hurting yourself, man. Let this go. You know what I mean? Whether you believe it's a conspiracy or we overreacted or whatever, that's irrelevant. But, you don't go like, we don't, by the way, I always call it the C word. Okay. So I don't talk about the C word, right? Because people get enough of the C word, people don't want to hear any more about it. So I just avoid it. So like the podcast, we never even brought the C word up.
Right.
And yet he just was like, bam. And I just thought to myself, like, man, this dude is just like.
It's so strange that he would go on your platform to do that. Like, dogs.
I know. It's like
there's far more. First of all, the shit that he's talking, nobody really wants to hear it except other people who believe that, right? But
right.
Go to another platform, not a platform regarding reptiles.
I know, it's so bizarre, but I just think like the pathology of people that have that negative mindset is, I feel bad for them, and thankfully, in my life, I do. I can't remember. I think it was talking to my sister the other day, and she said something about like, that all I ever think about is like that things are going to turn out good, because that's like my mentality. My mentality is always like, oh, well, it's going to work out. It's going to be fine. Or like when I start a business, I only envision it being very successful. I don't even think about what the possibility of it not being successful.
Right.
With that being mine, I always am prepared for it not to be successful. I'm not stupid where I invest all my money in something. If it doesn't work, I'm screwed.
Right.
I'm always willing to lose if I invest, but at the same time, like, I don't think of a scenario. So I guess I'm pretty blessed to have that mindset that is not tied up in like negativity and like, I don't know, if I'm going to look at something, I'm going to look at the most positive side of it, because and it's funny, like the Tiger King we talked about earlier. It's like I said, in reality, if you really think about the Tiger King, they filmed that for 3 years. They could have made that into any story they wanted to, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, with all the footage they had the ability to make that into any narrative. Now, don't get me wrong. They had, gold when Joe got arrested for trying to kill Carol. I mean, that they couldn't have scripted that. They couldn't have changed that narrative.
Right,
But my
right,
point
right.
is that, you could do that. My point is you could do that with almost any situation. You can look at any situation in the positive light and make it look great, or you can look at it in the negative light, like, and go the other way.
Right,
And
right,
I
right.
just choose to live my life in the positive light. And it's funny because Lori is much more realistic. That's why it's so weird that we have this relationship. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
Lori
yeah.
is actually, I wouldn't say she's a pessimist because she's not a pessimist, but she's always going to like I'll go to her and go like, hey, Lori, I got this great idea. Let's do this. And she'll go like, yeah, but then this is going to happen, or this is going to happen, or this is going to happen. I'm like, why are you raining on my parade? Like, we haven't even done it yet. Like you don't just look at the most possible worst thing. And but at the same time, when you're in a partnership like me and Lauren, it's almost a good thing because
Right.
I get this like really high, like, oh, it's going to work out great and it's going to be perfect. And she's like, no, we need to be more realistic with our things,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it kind of molds into something good.
Yeah, I mean, you leave it up to Brian. I mean, you're gonna have sloths doing security at the Braterium, having them in
Exactly.
jackets. Hey, you got
Yeah, don't tell Lori, but I did talk to someone today about a baby sloth that they have. So don't say anything.
now. Are there different? Are there different species of sloths? There are different
Yeah,
species,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So basically, your two-toed sloths are going to be the most common species that's around right now. When you get into like the three-toed sloths and some other sloths, they're very difficult to get. They're almost impossible to find, and they're very rare, very expensive. And I would never want to mess with those. I want just the most common, easy to take care of, the bulletproof one that's going to be really good. So two-toe sloths are the ones that most of the time that's what you see, and most of the time that's what you're going to get. And like I said, I love them to death. I think they're super, super cool. So yeah, that's the idea. And
And
I
a
just
lot of
can't
times in
imagine.
the wild, a sloth will be dinner for an anaconda, right? That's not
Yeah. Well, that was the thing that Lori said. She said that we should cohabitate the sloth and the
part of the
anaconda.
deluxe package there at the Reptarium. Let's see if the sloth survives Verde
Yeah.
or Ivy.
Yeah, Ivy with this
Ivy's the
one.
bigger
Yeah,
one.
yeah, Ivy's the big one. Yeah, and that. But
What,
obviously, we would never do that. But what the
what
funny thing is?
an
Go ahead.
amazing animal. I'm sorry to cut you off. What an
Oh
amazing
no,
animal Ivy is. Holy shit, man. Have you
I
ever
mean
been
it's
bit by an
crazy.
anaconda? Have you ever been
I
bit by?
have.
Now, is that the
I've been
worst
bit.
bite?
It's a bad bite. I don't know if it's the worst bite, but it's a bad bite. And I can tell you this much that I got bit by an animal roughly about the size of Ivy, about
Jesus
10 foot.
Christ.
Yeah, about 10, 11 foot. Ivy's about 12 foot now. So the one I got bit by. And it laid me open. It was about the most I've ever bled from a snake bite
And
before.
it was an anaconda.
It was an anaconda. Yeah, it was at a guy down in the St. Louis, Missouri area's place. It was actually, believe it or not, it was an albino anaconda to boot.
Really? I don't think I've ever seen one of those. Wow.
Yeah, it's the only one that I know of in existence right now is the albino anaconda, and he actually had an axanthic, which was like a bluish color
Holy shit.
anaconda, and then the albino, both greens, and I know he ended up producing double heads for essentially snow anacondas. This was several years ago, and I don't know what ended up happening. I think he ended up, unfortunately, I think he ended up selling. I think, but unfortunately, this was one of the guy. He was killed, unfortunately.
Oh,
The
wow.
guy, and so I think, but I think he might have sold the colony before, and I don't know who ended up with it, but I would love to track him
Yeah, man. I mean, that is wild. I never heard of a blue anaconda or an albino. That's amazing. Now,
down. Yeah.
this is a very fan question on my part. I know you always say, "Woo dog, we got things. These are my
Yeah.
favorites." What is it, man? This is for the like, but this is for me. What is your favorite snake? I'm guessing it gotta be the retic, because you show the
I
retics a lot of love.
I do, Lori calls it the reticarium, right? So yeah, and I want to get more retics. I
Oh,
really want to get
retics are
one of those.
dope.
I want to get one of those high white pies. There's a whole bunch of retics I'd still love to get, but Lori is definitely put her foot down about retics, additional retics. So we'll see
They
what happens. But
they say that the pie retics, their temperaments are a little iffy. Is that true?
Yeah, so it is true. Absolutely, I've been bit by a big pie tick. As a matter of fact, out at Jay Brewer's place, a big 14-footer nabbed me in the leg, and
Wow,
it was
14 feet.
yeah, she was a big girl, and she hit me hard. I mean, it got me good. It was so funny because it hit me so hard. It felt like I had a Charlie horse
Yeah.
from literally the teeth going into my muscle so deep. It was a really wild thing. I literally felt like someone had punched me in the thigh for like 2 or 3 days after it. But nevertheless, they do. But the good news is that Kevin at Nerd and even Jay at Prehistoric have now bred them into a couple things to make like these multi-gene pies. And they're coming out not only more interesting, more like a piebald ball python, where they're like 60, 70% white. They got white heads with a dot on them. Very
That's
much
really
more
cool.
interesting than yeah. But also, they seem to be very docile too. So they kind of bred out the aggression out of them, which is pretty cool. So that's the ones I want to get. But I don't know as far as favorite goes. I mean, I really do love anacondas. I mean, Ivy is probably the snake that I'm the most obsessed in that I've had. My green anaconda in a long, long
I
time. I
mean,
mean, literally.
they're just amazing. I mean, the colors, the fact that they're like aquatic. I mean, they take down these big meals. I like their eyes kind of sit on top of their head. They'll climb. They'll go underwater. They're just like
They're a
they're like
wild
they're like the
snake.
king of like I guess boys, right? They are like the
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, like I said, they're the most interesting behavior I've ever seen in a snake before. Just that enclosure that we have her in with the aquatic side and the big side.
so
It's just
dope, so dope.
yeah, and it's just like to see the way she would behave in the wild is just really cool. And so I think anaconda's right there. I will say I just got a Bolin's python,
Oh, that's
and
nice.
oh, they are
That is nice. I saw that on the episode earlier today.
Yeah, it's pretty
You
impressive.
should have saw my mannerisms. I was behaving like a kid. I was like pulling my shirt. I was like, boy, I can't take it. I can't fucking take it.
Yeah, I try. I'm that way every day with it. I mean, those are weird snakes, man. They are unusual. So like I said, favorite. I could never narrow it down, man. There's so many that I love. And that's the great thing about it, right? Is that I've been doing this since I was a kid, and I'm still as passionate, if not more passionate today than I've ever been about it.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I've since I can remember, I remember being a kid and going to the library, and there was a book on snakes, and I fucking read that book every day for like 3 years, and then I just started collecting, and they're just amazing. They bring me such peace. They're just absolutely beautiful. I even had a large iguana one time in a studio apartment. I lived in an apartment with like 12 snakes and like a 6-foot iguana, and the apartment was the size of like Ivy's cage, and I'm living there. Yeah, and so the iguana, we lived on the eighth floor. He on Thanksgiving Day, sometime like in 1998 or something. I wake up and I see him pushing the screen by the window,
No.
and I went to get him. He fell out the window, Brian. I look out the window.
My God.
He's like surfing on the fucking screen. Lands. I run downstairs. I got like pajamas. This is when I had hair. I had like crazy hair. I go down. He's all white. And I was like, damn, that's a pretty cool looking iguana. I wish he was white. I pick him up. The fucking guy is still alive.
Oh my gosh, from 8 floors.
8 stories, Brian. And I'm thinking to myself, something has to be broken internally, organs or something. I freaked some old lady out in the lobby. She's like, grabbed her rosaries, kissed them, ran up the block, left her wig behind. I bring him upstairs. He was smart enough to know to stay away from that window for, I would say, 2 months. And then he went back on that window and started chilling again. He lived another 10 years.
Isn't that wild, man?
That's fucking amazing. You can't throw any animal. I mean, I didn't throw it. Let's make that clear.
Yeah, you threw that out. Oh,
there's
man,
no
dude,
other
I've been
animal
that guy.
that survives that, right? Yeah, there's no animal that survives that. That is wild. That's why it's still here to this day, right? Jesus.
No, I mean, that's the thing. Reptiles as a whole are pretty insane with what they go through. I mean, look at like RJ, my pet alligator. When he was a baby, another alligator bit his freaking arm off. And literally, like 2 days later, it was eating and healed. And within a month, you couldn't even tell that it had, I mean, obviously it's a nub. It doesn't have an arm. But it's crazy what reptiles can go through. I mean, I was down in Australia a couple of years ago, and there was an alligator that literally didn't have a bottom jaw. The entire bottom jaw was bit off by another alligator, yet it was thriving. It was eating and everything. It just had this little nubber here that could just barely get the food in its gullet, and still doing great. Coming right up to the boat, taking food. I mean, these animals are pretty phenomenal. And listen, that's what, like, a lot of the medical side of things, right? Like, I mean, they look at alligators, because they don't get cancer. Their healing powers are absolutely.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. I didn't know alligators didn't get cancer.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And then, of course, you have, there's so many things. I mean, the venom, obviously. The one show I did on Discovery Channel was all about collecting venom for medical research and stuff like that. I mean, you have so many things that these toxins are good for. And then you get animals that, like I mean, look at elephants or something like that. Do you know, like, elephants don't die of old age? They die because their teeth rot out and they can't eat anymore.
Holy shit. I feel like I've heard that before. But
So I mean, it's just crazy. Just think, like, if an elephant had good teeth, it could live forever. They don't know how long it could live for. So it's just wild, right?
That is wild. My first job ever was working at Petland Discounts, and I'm from the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Check this out. And, it was kind of semi-rough. Put it like this. A lot of my friends were, like, into selling drugs at a young age, but I was so proud of my new job. I was like 14 years old. The pet store manager knew me because I used to go there all the time and buy, like, pinkies for my corn snake or whatever, right? I got the job. Brian, check this out. I bought glasses to wear because I thought it would make me look like more official to have a job. They were non-prescription glasses. So I had, like, a Petland shirt with my name tag, non-prescription glasses, super proud, coming home every night, smelling like parakeet shit and cedar chips, right?
Yeah.
My third day on the job, and which, by the way, what I was stressing back then was so trivial. I couldn't get enough air in the bag for goldfish. And I used to stress out, like, how am I going to get air in the bag? It was all deflated.
Yeah. So,
like, I used to go home, try to practice. But fast forward, my third day there, I remember there was a Burmese python, albino Burmese. And, they were like $500 back then, right? I wanted to overcompensate. I cleaned the cage, and he didn't even need to clean. I was just like spot cleaning or whatever. And he got out. And I lied to my manager. My manager was like, where's the bird man? And I was like, oh, man, there was some suspicious looking guys. They might have stolen or whatever. I fucking lied, right? He was like, oh, don't worry about it. We'll put it as like stolen goods. 2 months later, I'm cleaning. I see the berm on a glue trap.
Oh, my gosh. No.
Dead mice next to it. And he was, like, dehydrated. The manager of this fucking place decides, oh, we'll just put him as dead stock, put him in a plastic bag, threw him in the freezer.
Oh,
like,
my
awful.
God.
And then one of my coworkers was like, oh, my God, is he still alive? I was like, yeah, I think we could cure him. She takes him home, rehabilitates him, and I had that berm for like 10 years. He lived.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. I mean, this is amazing.
I just had a tour today, a virtual tour today with a guy that had similar story. Well, a little bit different, but like he went to a pet shop just to get crickets and stuff like that for his bearded dragon, and he got there and there was literally a garbage bag someone had just dropped on their door, and it was actually a boa constrictor that was like emaciated. It was a motley boa too, really pretty. He had it,
nice.
Now this thing is beautiful, big, beautiful. And he said it was all emaciated, had a bunch of rat bites all over the, scarred up. And they were just going to do the same thing. They were going to euthanize it. They're like, yeah, we'll just use it. He said, can I take it home? Yeah. And now here, 3 years later, things like this big around, beautiful. So, yeah, it's wild again, how these animals can survive these wild experiences,
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I have one other question for you. Do you find that where is it? Do you find that that with this time off, you're gonna what's the next what do you think is the next project? Are you thinking that far ahead? Because I know you're always like kind of like innovating, and is it be like another expansion, if that's even possible for the Reptarium? What's like the thing, even maybe that you were thinking about prior So the whole pause, was there something that you were like, I got to sink my teeth
Yeah.
into? Because you strike me as that person. The Reptarium 2 hasn't opened, but you're probably thinking about the next thing. What is that?
Oh yeah, no, before we even opened up 2.0, I already had 3.0 planned, 100% planned out. And so originally I was hoping I could start 2.0 by November, or 3.0 by November. And so basically what the deal is that you've been to my place, there's like 3 buildings. All 3 have basements, right? Essentially right now, one of the basements and one of the upstairs is BHB.
Okay.
And that's where our offices are, our breeding stock are, and stuff like that. So the idea was to move all of BHB into the basements underneath the 2 Reptariums now. So have those 2 full of BHB and have the where BHB is upstairs and downstairs open, wide open. Then do the same thing, open the wall, just like we opened the wall going from Reptarium 1.0 to 2.0, open it going from 3.0. But this difference would be that we would actually so there's one stairway going into the basement. You can't have public into a place that has one egress, one stairway. Right. So the opening would actually have another stairway going down. So that way we'd have a stairway in the front and a stairway in the back. Now we could have public that would actually go down. And so the idea would be to have another expansion upstairs for Reptarium, but then have a basement for the Reptarium too. And the basement, we wanted to have a lot of swimming experiences. So there'd be like a 20-foot by 15-foot pond that you could get in with salt and actually swim with salty albino alligator. And then there'd be one. Yeah, and then there would be one that would be you could get in with a big snake, like you maybe swim with ivy or you swim with Lucy. And then another one, a big tank, would be a stingray tank where you could swim with stingrays. And then so that would be the basement, would be these big swim tanks, as well as some other stuff down there as well, almost feel like a cave. You walk down into this cave and stuff. And then the upstairs would be just more of the same. That would be where the sloth would be, as a matter of fact, at 3.0, and a few other things. So yes, number one, that has been in the works. I still think it's going to happen. Do I think it's going to happen in November? I don't know. It depends how quickly we can get back up and running. If we're back up and running in June, I think we could do it in November. If we aren't back up and running until August or September, it probably isn't going to happen until February or March of next year. I really wanted to have it like the same timeline that we had this one, where we were opening maybe in like March, April, and have the summer, because the summer months are the busiest months for zoos, have the 3.0. So there's that. There's also something that is going forward. And that's, I can't say too much about it right now, but there's a pretty big reptile product line that I'm going to be a partner in.
Product line?
That is some pretty major players in the reptile supply chain are involved in. So it's a conglomerate of 5 or so of us that all have a lot to bring to the table. My side would be mainly promotion / whatever, the influence side, let's say. Their side are already, 2 of the 3 biggest reptile suppliers in the country are partners in it, and then there's a little bit more. So that's in works now, and that's, going to launch soon, so that's going to be a pretty major thing. But I also have a whiteboard I'm looking at right now that I won't read off all the things that are on that whiteboard, but
you have enclosures too, right? That you're thinking of launching.
Yeah, and we may move those enclosures over to this new product line rather than doing it on my own, because I want to kind of bolster this line. So right now I do have a product line called Reptile Prime, but it only has a couple SKUs with beddings and a couple other things. But we're going to maybe we won't dissolve Reptile Prime. Reptile Prime may be a product within this new company. Something on that lines. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, there's always, like you said, I'm always like, thinking out. Right now, my brain is probably thinking about 2023. Like already, I'm like, I've got 2020 kind of obviously took a little bit of a roadblock, speed bump here. But we'll be back on track soon enough. But then I've already got like the rest of 2020, 2021 kind of planned out. I've got this drinking game that I launched a while ago that I just didn't really do a good job of. And by the way,
I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah, I didn't do a good job of it, so I got to relaunch that here as soon as this whole thing is over. And I've got some pretty good partners on that are going to promote, like some guys that are like million following type guys that have huge followings that are party guys on YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that. So they've now gotten behind it, and it's the type of thing that, like, if one of these guys shouted out, we would sell 25,000 units,
Wow.
That type of thing. And these are the type of guys that sell, $1.2 million worth of merch, like shirts and hats a month.
Yeah.
So it gives you an idea what kind of influence they have. So they've already jumped on. So yeah, there's a lot of things going to be coming down.
And during this time, I mean, this is like a kind of like side note. The merch got to be like pushing too. Like that's what you push during these times, man. You get the merch out.
Yeah, man, I just had a meeting yesterday with Teespring, and they've been trying to recruit me for a while to come onto their platform. And so I think I'm going to join up with them. They've got it's kind of cool. They have an opportunity right now to do a Puma brand deal with us, where we would launch a merch, like a short limited merch run that would be Puma gear that would be exclusive to us.
That's dope.
With our stuff on it. And so yeah, there's a whole bunch of things like, merch wise that we want to jump on as well. It's like you said, there's so many things that you can do. And I think, again, going back to the Gary Vee thing, I think that this is the time for people to, I'm busier than ever right now. So it's hard for me to find extra time because I'm so busy. But for most people, they're sitting around, this is a time, man. If you've been thinking of some crazy ideas, fucking do it, man.
Absolutely.
What I mean?
Absolutely.
This is it. This is the time, man. And you should be crushing it right now. And not everyone has the opportunities that we have, obviously, but the people that do need to jump on those. And even like, hey, I don't know, because I'm not, a fitness trainer or something like that, but there's probably some really innovative thing in the fitness world that could be launched right now that might not have worked other than, and if you go back to, like, let's say 2008, a totally different situation than now, obviously, but the economy crashed back then. And there was some pretty amazing companies like Square and, Instagram were formed in 2008, 2009.
Yeah. We're definitely going to see some interesting things post-quarantine. Yeah. I mean, in years to come, some beautiful things are going to evolve from it. We already know the bad, but some beautiful things would evolve from this. Is there any specific video that you launched on your vlog that you didn't think would get the recognition or a positive response, that you're like super like, wow, that's amazing. I never would have thought that it would have created this sort of noise and this kind of like cult following? Was there one video, or was it just like a collection of the different videos?
I think there's always a bunch of different ones that you get surprised both ways. Sometimes you get surprised when something performs well, and sometimes you're like, this is a banger, man. This is going to crush. And then it just underperforms. You're like, how did that not perform? But the one video that stands out was actually my egg-bound snake.
Yeah,
video.
That's what I thought. What was it? Was it a milk snake?
It was a milk snake. It's a hunter milk snake. And the funny thing is, dude, is that I almost didn't film it. I literally, it happened, and I was like, should I film this? I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea to film it. And I was like, all right, let's go ahead and film it. And I think it has almost 30 million views.
Amazing. Well, it just shows it displays a number of different things. Your knowledge, your care for the animal. I mean, you saved the animal's life, for Christ's sake. And also, it's like, that's a skill. That's a fucking skill. I mean, you don't want to go doing that on your own. If you have an egg.
No, that was my hesitation.
Yeah, but you know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah, but I didn't want people to be like, oh, I'm going to do that now. And that was my hesitation with it. And so even when I put it out, I was like, it's not that good of a video. Maybe blah, blah, blah. And then I'll say, and weirdly enough, so my two most watched videos are the egg-bound snake video on this channel. Weirdly enough, I have a video that's much more popular on Snake Bites TV. Has like 58 million views or something like that.
Right.
But And then I have a video on TikTok that has 100 million views, which I think is
TikTok,
really
look at you, man. TikTok came out like 6 hours ago, and you're already killing it.
Dude, I'm on it, man. I'm hitting. I'm going for that 2 mil now. I'm at 1.9, man. So I got to get to 2 million on that sucker. But yeah, I have a video. I have a video on TikTok that has 100 million views. Of course, TikTok is a lot different than YouTube because it's a short form and stuff like that. But anyways, point is that my two biggest videos I almost didn't film. So the one was the egg bound. The other one was when Lucy escaped. When there was like my early days of as a matter of fact, I talked about how I started vlogging in June, coming up on 4 years. And at first I did like once a week, then I did 3 times a week. And what happened was just before Thanksgiving in November, Lucy escaped. And she was out and same thing. I was here alone on a Saturday morning before the rep tear, so we didn't have anything going on Saturdays, no tours, no anything. I was here alone, and I come in, I go downstairs, and Lucy's gone. Of course, at that point, she was probably an 18-foot snake. Now she's over 20 foot. But it was easy to find her. She was stuffed up on top of a cage underneath a vent, just kind of crammed up there. So I called one of my employees that lived like 2 miles away. I said, hey, man, can you come over and help me get this snake? There's no way I can do this myself. He said, sure. He got here, and I was like, you think I should film this? And he was like, why not? Why not do it? And I was like, okay. And so I did it. And that was really the video that launched my vlog channel. And what I mean by that is that like before I was getting like 20,000 views a video, which was still fine. It was still good. But that video got like 1.3 million views in 2 days. And I went from like, I think I had about 50,000 subs when that video hit. And I gained over 200,000 subs in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I went to like 250,000 subs in 2 weeks. Because what happened was I put that video out, it popped to like 1.3 million. And then a couple days later, I had another video with Lucy, and that got like 2 million views. Now that video, I think, has like 20 million views on it. So that was the interesting thing, is that those were 2 videos that literally almost didn't happen. And they turned out to be my 2 most popular videos on my vlog channel.
Lucy's an awesome snake. You know why I like her? Because you don't know what you're gonna get with her. So it's like you earned that shit.
Yeah, I mean, the other day you'll see a vlog comes out. I think it's tomorrow, or maybe it's the next day. We kind of vlog down a little ahead with the extra time we have right now.
Right.
So we keep on. So we try. We usually so normally, if today is Wednesday, let's say, I would film Wednesday, edit Thursday, upload Friday. That's the schedule. Right now, I'm like filming Wednesday and uploading Saturday because I have one extra day. So I think that actually a couple days from now is when the video comes out. But yeah, I went in with Lucy, and she's been in a really good mood the last couple months. Yeah, and I go in, and sure enough, she just takes a shot at me, just like whoa, right in my face. And I mean, that's just like you said, you never know what you're going to get. Weirdly enough, she struck at me twice. She struck once, struck again, almost got me. And then I was able to, just kind of get her. And then I played with her for like 20 minutes out of her cage. Completely fine.
That's awesome, man. That's really awesome.
But, when you're talking about it's like I said, she has a 10-foot by 8-foot cage that's 8 foot tall. It's a big enclosure. But you have to walk in there. And there is not one place in that entire cage that you are not in strike range.
Wow.
You're always in strike range when you're in that cage. Right. So it's about like reading her and trying to anticipate where she's going to strike to get away from it. So
with a snake that size, do you follow what the like the rules are? Like, are you ever handling her alone, or you always have someone around?
No, always have someone around. I would never ever handle her alone.
You hear that? So if you got a big snake, what would you say? Anything above 10 feet, you should always handle with someone else.
That's exactly the rule that we use here. If it's over 10 foot, nobody ever handles that snake. Even if it's the tamest snake on the planet, you do not handle a 10-foot snake unless someone's at least within screaming distance.
Right.
So
and that's the thing.
At least in the same room, yeah.
People ask questions like that. And these are people who are just ignorant. I don't mean that in a bad way. They just don't know any better. Like, does a snake, when it eats you, it's like, no, but you got to respect these animals. They're big animals, that, you just never know. So if a snake of that size, you have to be very responsible. But for the most part, you're not going to have like problems with snakes. I mean, there's more pit bull bites, there's more car accidents than any of this shit.
Oh yeah, I think there's been 3 or 4 deaths since 1970.
Yeah. They're
in North
so
America.
high. They're so highlighted. It's like some sensationalism.
When someone gets killed by a snake, it's going to make a lot of news. It's like I talk about with like the Florida Everglades, right? Everyone talks about Burmese pythons being invasive in the Everglades, but the fact is, if you really looked at invasive issues in the Everglades, Burmese are probably 20th on the list of what's bad. But it sells newspapers, right?
Yeah,
Because it's a 20-foot snake crawling around the Everglades. People aren't going to be like, oh, those zebra mollusks, they are really bad for the Everglades.
Right.
Because no one really cares about that shit.
One thing that I heard on the news that really upset me, that a lot of people got the same information. It's pretty consistent with people who I talked to about snakes. Is this one show? I'm not sure what show it was, but it was maybe like when animals attack or some shit like that. But this woman owned a Burmese, and it got out of the cage and it was laying by her.
Oh yeah, the sizing up part,
and sizing. Right? Oh my God, maybe you do know. It's just like, what? I never heard of such a thing. But that left such an impression on people. Which, by the way, they end up killing that snake, which is totally fucked up.
Okay, so let me tell you something. You might be surprised by what I'm about to tell you.
You think you think it was sizing it up? Okay.
No. So that's a wives' tale, and I would say at least 10 times a year, someone comes into the reptarium and tells me that exact same story about their aunt having it happen to them. And probably that's at the reptarium. I would say, and so there's two stories that I get told all the time, the same story. And it's always my aunt or my uncle had this happen to them. The sizing up part, I would say that, at the reptarium, it happens 10 times a year. I would say at least 15 times a year when I'm out and about and people hear I do reptiles. So probably 20 to 30 times a year I hear that story, not because of Animal Planet, but because their aunt had that happen. They went to a vet. The vet said it was sized up. So it's a complete wives' tale. The entire thing is a wives' tale. The other one that I hear, and it's funny because Jay, my camera guy, I told him this when he first started working with me. I told him the two stories. And he laughs every time it gets told because it gets told so much. So the other story is, and trust me, this happens. And it's even happened one time. Jay was with me when I was at a high-end zoo, a big zoo, and the curator told us the story. And the story is that if you have an alligator snapping turtle, a big one, almost every person that has a huge alligator snapping turtle will say, I don't know how old this is, but we actually dug a musket ball out from the Civil War. Every single time you will hear that story from somebody that has a big alligator snapping turtle. Every single time. So, like I said,
people are dirtbags. That's a dirtbag move.
I don't even know if it's dirtbag. I think it's like they believe it. They believe it, and it's just so. Like I said, Jay's been with me for like 8 months now. He's probably heard the musket ball probably 10 times. And he's heard the snake sizing up probably 20 times.
Oh God, I hear that shit.
And he turns to me every time, and he's like, and it's not like, hey, I saw this show on Animal Planet. It's always like, my aunt had a python, and this happened to her. And so and you're always
every time I heard it, it was like, oh, they saw it on Animal Planet or something like that. So it's like people are these motherfuckers on these networks are running out of ideas. I'm like, let's use that wives' tale.
Yeah, because that's been going on for 20 years. 20 years, way before Animal Planet existed. I've been hearing that story. So I guarantee you that never ever happened to one person. Never one. Because really, snakes are opportunistic feeders, right? They don't size anything up. They're gonna, if they think they can eat you, they're gonna eat you. And that's when people do get killed, which is rare. Although it's interesting. There's actually an island in the Philippines, small island. 26% of the adult males have been attacked and tried to kill by pythons. 26% of the population of males, because they're out hunting. And these giant pythons are in the areas that they hunt in. 26% of them have been attacked and almost killed. And in the Philippines, they estimate at least once a month someone is eaten by a retic.
Wow. I mean, this is like in the dense fucking.
This is the wild, man.
This is the wild, yeah. And these things are huge. Yeah.
But the last one that made like internet prowess was a woman lived in the jungles and the forests in a small village in the Philippines. And that's where most of the deaths happen. Not Indonesia, but the Philippines. Smaller people, big snakes, a lot of these villages are right on the edge of jungles and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're all smaller, and they're all the size like Manny Pacquiao, little welterweights.
Exactly, that's what they are. And so this is kind of the prime thing. But so this woman, and this did happen. I mean, the pictures proved that they cut the snake open, and the woman was inside of it. So
Wow.
And this is like all over this is real. But what happened was she went outside because she heard a dog squealing, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. She went out and then never came back. And the next morning, her family was like, "Where did she go?" About 100 feet away from her house, they found their slippers. And then right a little bit far away from that, they found a python with a huge lump in her, and they actually cut it open, and she was inside. And that was a real story. That really did happen. But like I said, my understanding is from friends of mine there is that it's a pretty common thing for people to be taken. But in captivity, it's very, very rare. I mean, It does happen. Weirdly enough, I met the guy last year in Indiana. A woman was killed.
Right.
Weirdly enough, a 10-foot retic. A 10-foot retic. Only about this big around.
Wow.
How does that happen? That
was suicide. She wanted to go.
But weirdly enough, I met the guys that own the snake in the house, and he the reason why it kind of died. I think the reason why it died down is he's the sheriff of the town, and he's the one that owned the snake. So they kept it. It kind of never really got national buzz. But I met him, and he told me the whole story about what had happened. And he said it was just a very, very mean retic, and that much like everyone else, they had a policy that you weren't supposed to handle that or any other bigger snake. And she went in without his permission, and he found her the next morning dead.
Wow. That is wild. Do you have a policy? Like, do you ever find that if you have, and after this, we're going to wrap up because you've given me way more time than I need. And I really appreciate your time. You're the best, Brian.
My pleasure, bud.
But if you leave it up to me, I'll have you here for another 4 hours. But in closing, do you ever find that maybe a potential consumer, maybe not even in present, like recently, but in the past, you've turned down a sale because you felt like...
All the time. We have a really strict policy, and it's been something that I've had since I was 20 years old. That if I feel that either the person can't or won't take care of the animal, we refuse the sale. Period. Right. And so even now that online sales, and Beth, who's wonderful, works in my office, knows this. She has the authority that if someone places an order, I was kind of surprised by this. I didn't realize that every company doesn't do this. Like, we do not ship a snake unless we talk to the person on the phone. And I was surprised by that because a lot of my friends were like shocked that was our policy, because they were like, "Oh, someone placed an order online, we send them an email with the shipping, and then that's it." And we have a policy here: you will not get an animal from us unless we talk to you on the phone. And if Beth at some point feels on that phone conversation that they shouldn't have that animal, she cancels the order. And she just says, "I'm sorry, we can't ship that animal."
Wow. That is awesome. And I think that's a very important and responsible thing to do, because people do, these people can be very impulsive and and get an animal that they can't really care for. I mean, these things live a long time, and they deserve the best treatment possible.
Yeah, and I could sit here and I could spend hours telling you the stories that Beth and us have heard from people that we turned down, and we're just like shocked, like, "Oh my God, I cannot believe this person thinks that's okay." So no, yeah, we do it all the time, and I think that if other people don't do it, it's stupid, because people, like you said, impulsively buy. They're not ready for it. They're not, I am not against anyone owning anything if you're responsible. I think, I think you should be able to over a tiger or a lion, as long as you're not putting anyone in jeopardy, and the animal is housed properly. But that being said, I don't think everyone should own a tiger or a lion. I don't think everyone should own a reticulated python. I don't think everyone should own a Burmese python.
About 10 years ago, there was a guy who had a tiger in the projects in Harlem.
Yep, I've heard about
Remember that?
Yeah.
And the police man went off the roof. And a fucking tiger came and hit the glass. Oh man, they need to make a movie about that shit.
No shit. Yeah, I tell you about it. Well, it's funny because if you remember way back in like I mean, I was too young to remember. You certainly were too young. You weren't even alive back then. But I think in the 60s, there was, what the hell was the lion's name that was raised in Manhattan? Do you remember this?
No, I
So,
don't. I'll
so
Google
it was
after
like
we're
this,
done.
it was this like, yeah, you got to look it up because there's a famous video on YouTube you may have seen this video of a guy going to Africa and this wild lion comes running up and like hugs him, like
Wow.
jumps up on him. That was the lion that was raised in New York. So what happened was, so he raised it in New York, and he used to drive around like in a convertible Jag down the streets of Manhattan. This lion would be just sitting in here, and it was like this big thing. It was like that was back in the day when it was like the Playboy Mansion and all this type of stuff, like like kind of like this party town. And these guys literally raised two guys that were a couple, and they raised this lion in their Manhattan apartment. And it was legal. There was nothing against it. But ultimately, it got too big, and they ended up giving it to South Africa, which were preserved.
Right.
And for like 10 years, this lion lived on this preserve. And then this film crew actually followed these guys to South Africa to reunite with this. And I wish I could remember the animal's name. Trust me, it's got like 100 million views on YouTube. You will find it. And literally, this guy shows up, and of course, he's got the like the white pants on or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Big old bell bottoms, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
this lion just comes. I think it was called Christian the Lion. Actually, is what it is. So Google that, Christian the Lion.
Yeah.
And this lion just comes running up, and the first thing you think is like, this lion's going to eat this freaking guy, And sure enough, it literally jumps up in his arm and just like gives it the lion just gives it a hug, starts licking his face, just like. And this was after several years of it being in the wild, and but yeah, I'm positive it's called Christian the Lion. So
I'm gonna look that up. That's hilarious. That is really funny.
But yeah, it was raised in New York, in Manhattan. Yep.
Let me get myself a tiger. I can just picture in a topless car with the mane blowing that in the wind down Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's a wild story. Don't just watch the one YouTube video of the reuniting. Watch like the whole story, because it was like they did it's really an amazing story of the thing. So it's pretty cool.
That is really cool. Brian, I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate what you do for the reptile community, for the animal community. I am a complete fan of you and the rest of the family. So thank you so much. Do me a quick favor. Plug in the platforms for the listeners, and then we'll sign out of here, brother.
Oh, man, you can find me, obviously, YouTube. It's Brian Barczyck. If you just punch in Brian B on YouTube, I'll be the first one that comes up. You can look Checking In as our podcast.
Checking In,
Checking is the podcast. Obviously, you can, on all the socials you find me. Brian.
Yeah, all you have to type in is Brian Barczyck, BARCYZK. Did I get that right?
CZYK. You were close, but you were close. A couple extra consonants in there.
Anyway, my bad. All the information will be on the description here. Once again, I appreciate you, brother. I can't wait till we open back up and I get to visit you at the Reptarian one more good time.
Come hang out anytime, brother. You be good, man. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Peace, brother. Thank you.
Peace. Take care, man. See you, dude. Bye.
Thanks.